And when I look at Europe, especially, but also on the left, I always hear this voice of happiness as the prime idea. I hear them talk about socialism. They say most of these programs, these socialistic programs, people support these. And I know they do. People support opiate. People get addicted to opiates too, right? People do like free stuff. They don't understand that free stuff is making life easy, but it's taking away from them the only thing that matters, which is their freedom, which is their only way to pursue happiness if you are free, right? So this is when I look at Europe right now and I see Donald Trump in Europe and everybody protesting and everybody shocked, and they're so shocked by populism. What I see is a living culture. Trump, in some ways, maybe the remnant of the last living culture, going to a culture that has committed suicide. There was an expert on, I think it was on CNN. His name was Richard Haas, right? He's the president of Council on Foreign Relations. And he's worried that Trump is destroying the wonderful society that has existed since World War II. And here he is talking about that.
Taking a step back, the question is, you think about it, what came before it was 2 world wars. So we know what came before, which was the worst 50 years of human history. We had 75 years of relative peace, prosperity, democracy, made tremendous strides around the world. And here we are, and Donald Trump is an outlier. So the real question is what comes after, or to frame it, are the last 75 years the normal now? Donald Trump's the exception, and then we kind of return, not exactly to where we were, but to something pretty familiar. Or is Donald Trump the beginning of a new era? So the last 75 years look like the exception. We know what came before, 2 world wars, and now we're potentially entering an era of history which has all sorts of jockeying between great powers, the rise of China, these global forces we can't contend with, failed states in the Middle East, populism, nationalism, and that is the historical question.
So this is exactly how Brave New World comes into being. People get tired of war. There's a 9 years war. I guess this is before World War II, so he must have seen it coming, and they don't want to have war anymore, so they invent this perfect society. What he's not taking into account is that people like their countries. They like the things that happen. Countries cause problems. Countries cause competition, but they like their homes. They don't like it when you say, here are a million Muslims who are coming to live in your society, and they hate you, but you're not allowed to say anything about that because we have this rule that is for globalization. The people who argue for globalization, they have a lot of good points. Globalization makes everybody happier and richer, but it also destroys some of the things that people hold most dear. When you put happiness first, you lose your country. When you put happiness first, you might lose your jobs in the Midwest. Somebody in Nigeria might get those jobs, but your people, the people that you have attachments to, those people are left out in the cold to die by opiate poisoning and addiction and despair. And so the happy world that he's talking about, the happy world that Trump threatens, the happy world that we conservatives threaten by wanting people to be free and self-reliant and to suffer failure and to suffer their pains, it's a very hard world to argue for. It is a very hard world to say, if you want to be free, you have to take risks. If you want to take risks, you can't ask me to pay for them when those risks fail. If you want to have sex, you might get pregnant. You can't kill that baby. You can't kill that baby just because you made a mistake. I know it keeps you happy to not have that baby in your life, but no, you're violating something of importance, something real, a moral law. All these questions are questions of happiness, and all these questions of whether or not we are going to put happiness first. And I argue that a culture of happiness is a culture of death. I think we're seeing that in Europe. I think we saw it with this poor girl in the Netherlands, that ultimately we have to wonder if there is some other meaning not to be set by the government, not to be set even by the church, but to be found by people and to be found with the help of theologians and thinkers, but to be chosen, each of us, on our own and on our own responsibility. This revolt against the elites that we're seeing, I know that the elites don't like it very much, but they might have to wonder if maybe in doing so much good and helping everybody be happy, they weren't really having those values for themselves. The people who are paying for all this happiness for other people suffered and strove and sought the meaning of their lives. And what they're really saying is that you, the rest of you, in your simplicity, you can't do that. So we'll just pay you to go away and live a happy life. And here's some soma and relax. And basically, I think that, that is the society they're selling us. And we have to think long and hard about what we're offering people instead of happiness, because happiness is a beautiful thing and it's a drug and nobody wants to be miserable.